It's episode 3 of season 3 of the Prana and Poetry Pod, and today's episode is on Vedic astrology and decoloniality. I've been blessed with Jyotish since childhood, in the sense that it was always present in my life. Through my dad and his mum, my grandmother, Jyotish guided their steps in life. It guided us when to take the next right action step in business. Life moved according to the planets. In other words, I knew the importance of moving in alignment with nature from a young age. I knew the importance, but it wasn't embodied. The first decades of my life was ruled by the colonial conditioning that we inherited and that is forced upon us through the systems we currently live in. There is some natural intuition of Jyotish that I've also inherited from my family's interest and understanding and their lifelong usage of Jyotish for many aspects of life, like auspicious timings. For example, when to take the right action, understanding what Mahadasha we're currently influenced by, to general things like the timings of festivals like Diwali and Navratri, both of which are coming up now. And if you were lucky enough to retain dharma in your household, especially if you're from the diaspora like me, you would have had a Hindu panchang at home or a Vedic calendar, which you had every year. It's a palm or hand-sized calendar, but very thick and detailed, and most definitely printed in India, Bharat. I've been blessed with being brought up in the Hindu vision of the world, which, after strengthening my relationship with Vedic knowledge later in life, made me easily identify coloniality, the opposite of indigenous ways of life. Things like unnatural mindsets, false conditionings, and the perpetual resistance to nature and the fabric of reality, which the Vedic vision of life understands as dharma. It's an exciting time because younger Hindu generations are now reclaiming and seeing the pricelessness in what they have inherited, in what they are holding, precious, liberating knowledge. I wish I had started young and not taken for granted my birth in Sanatan Dharma. Yet I know I should go easy on myself. Our parents and grandparents sacrificed so much in migration, in threatening colonial environments. And we all dealt with so much racism growing up, living amongst a dominant culture and its divisive ideologies. It got easier if you were descended from third and fourth generation immigrants, but I really don't know how my parents and their parents survived in a hostile world, especially when they were in colonial India. I hold so much grief and compassion for how they retained what they could from our Vedic customs, rituals, and knowledge. And a lot was lost. Many of our parents and grandparents held and still hold so much colonial trauma, which is passed on to us generationally. I honestly wouldn't have survived the way they have survived in a foreign land that was hostile to them when they arrived, both explicitly and in daily microaggressions. And now my mission is to reclaim our dharmic knowledge that heals and nourishes in order to support a safe and loving world. So whatever indigenous teachings got corrupted through time, through the cultural body of Indian Hindus, I know to have empathy and compassion because of their brutal conditionings by the invaders, the violence and the losses, along with the theft of land and ban of our cultural knowledge. So just like how yoga has been co-opted and stripped down to its one component, the asanas, the use of Jyotish too has been reduced and appropriated to its predictive aspect, which is what Jyotish is widely known for now. I've been so grateful to experience the study of Jyotish through Swati Miller, who holds an amazing depth of understanding of the astrology and who focuses on its aspect of healing and transformation. In other words, Jyotish is so much more than what it has been reduced to. In fact, by understanding the moon cycles and writing about the astrology for over 4 years consistently now, it has actually supported and deepened my study and practice of yoga. Jyotish, which is the sixth Vedanga, a limb of the Vedas, offers a brilliant understanding of the Hindu worldview. It is a shastra, a set of guidelines on the astronomy and astrology, and forms part of Hindu epistemology. All the Shastras, including Yoga, Ayurveda, and Jyotish, all complement each other and are part of a whole ecosystem which originated and flourished in Bharat. So in studying one limb, you can and should deepen understanding of the other. So where does the conversation on decoloniality come in? Well, it's going to come in the difference between Western astrology and Indian astrology, also called Hindu or Vedic astrology. I've already mentioned that post-invasion, even before the British, because Bharat has been invaded many times, there is a shift to Vedic knowledge no longer being developed, as many manuscripts, including the teachers, gurus, places of study, were destroyed. And Jyotish starts to become more and more focused on predictions. If we follow common sense through, this comes out of the need to survive. So Hindus are trying to find the best outcomes for themselves and others. How can knowledge and physical bodies flourish under threat, starvation, abuse, terror, and death? It can't. However, Vedic knowledge surviving and flourishing today speaks to the resilience of our ancestors and the Hindus living today. So that's why decoloniality is important. We must be grateful for the Hindu bodies that held firm to dharma and protected it so that we can live in alignment with the natural world and ourselves today. Not many are willing to do decolonial shadow work. Those who are, I've experienced, are mainly BIPOC. Isn't that interesting? Who is showing up to do the work? Who is showing up despite being the receivers of the oppression? I'm seeing and experiencing a clear pattern. As always, BIPOC communities have to work 100 times harder than the dominant culture to be seen, heard, or our experience even validated. Is it a surprise that I'm seeing the BIPOC community showing the most interest? I am disappointed. Yet everyone who is using an indigenous cultural practice should be doing the deep inner work, especially if you have colonial ancestors, because it's the deeply ignorant folks who are continuing to erase our culture in yoga spaces and new age spiritual spaces, taking what they like without an understanding of the history of the indigenous cultural practices they're using, or the troubled living communities that the practice originates from. And I'm speaking from a diasporic view, and I want to be clear that Hindus are not homogenous, and those who grow up abroad have a different experience with the dominant culture and society than someone, say, growing up in Bharat, where experiences are also utterly diverse. That's why there is so much nuance which must be paid attention to. Ahimsa is applied to your direct or immediate locality, and not in your imagination. If someone on the same land as you and community as you is telling you that they are being harmed, it's common sense to listen to that person closest to you, not bypass their voice and claim someone in Bharat told you otherwise. Please, common sense. I'm so tired of BS and those who make excuses just so that they can continue to exploit and profit from an indigenous community's harm. Also be wary of Western or English translations of Jyotish Shastras. Any translation from the Sanskrit will distort the correct knowledge and meaning. So it's important to study these Shastras as they are rather than in translation, if this is a possibility. This is why we go to a qualified guru or a lineaged teacher where knowledge is protected and undistorted. This is, after all, how the Shastras have survived the tests of time. Jyotisha Shastra is part of Hindu epistemology and has three main branches or skandhas. Siddhanta Skandha, dealing with the mathematics and astronomical aspects. Samhita Skandha, which is based on planetary influences and natural phenomena like the weather and predictions of worldly natural events. And Hora Skandha, which deals with the individual birth charts or horoscopes. Remembering that the meaning of the Vedas is knowledge of reality, knowing, which was received through transmission to the rishis, the seers. The Vedas are not books, but the oral transmission which came to be written down around 5,000 years ago. Our itihas, the history of Bharat, our indigenous cultural knowing, places their origins way, way before this time. And there is evidence going back to the Ramayana of sophisticated astronomical knowledge. For example, Rishi Valmiki mentions Ram's date of birth along with the position of the planets in their respective rashis at that time, including his Janma Nakshatra, birth star, which is Punarvasu. And through modern technology, specifically planetarium software, the Institute of Scientific Research on the Vedas have confirmed through scientific calculations the description of the sky on the date given in the Ramayana to be factually accurate. I mean, how amazing is that? It's important to note that what outsiders of the culture call mythology, we call our history. Our factual history, along with the narrative storytelling, is a concept in Sanskrit called itihasa. I've discussed this in season 1 of the Prana and Poetry Pod in my Breaking Yogaland episodes. Feel free to check them out to know more. So, Punarvasu, Sri Ram's birth star, is ruled by Aditi, the mother of the 12 solar deities. This is important as we know that Ram's ancestry hails from Suryavansh, the solar dynasty. Ram is the 67th king of that dynasty. The entire genealogy of Suryavansh is known and listed in places like the Vishnu Puran. Therefore, there is a detailed lineage provided that ties Hindu cosmology to the land of Bharat. Again, Ramayana is a historical telling. And as a Hindu, I was truly lucky enough as a child to understand that for us, this is our history. But through colonial conditioning, I too unconsciously came to use words like mythology to describe my ancestral land's itihas. So coming back to my point to uncolonize indigenous knowledge and practices, it's best practice to learn from the source, and specifically I mean learn the actual shastras from an authentic source where Vedic knowledge has been transmitted undistorted. Some important foundational Jyotish texts are Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra by Maharishi Parashara, Brihaspati Samhita, Brihat Jataka, and Brihat Samhita, all by Varahimihir, Saravali by Kalyana Varman, Phaldipika by Manteshwara, and Vasishtha Samhita. There's more, and I've added these to my Dharma and Decolonial Toolkit, a list of resources which you can download and access immediately, so no need to take notes of the text. Get my toolkit. So there are 2 systems of astrology you can learn. There's the Parashara system and the Jaimini system. The Parashara system is most widely used and is the most popular way of diagnosis. And the place to start may be the Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra, which is a very important foundational text of Hindu astrology. So what we see today as Western astrology is influenced strongly by Greek and Roman beliefs, though can be traced back earlier to Babylonian and Mesopotamian cultures. It differs from Vedic astrology in many ways. In Western astrology, the zodiac is defined by the placement of the sun along the ecliptic path and is divided into 12 signs, each spanning 30 degrees, starting from Aries. This is different from Vedic astrology, which uses a sidereal zodiac based on the actual positions of the stars in the sky. So the sun being at the center of our universe gives us an insight to the Western psyche, its emphasis on ego and the masculine orientation is a linear experience and way of looking at things, whereas Jyotish is a moon-based system, which I'll get into in a moment. The difference lies in Western astrology following a tropical zodiac, where again importance is placed on the position of the sun and the 4 points located across the ecliptic orbit, where the Earth revolves around the sun. These 4 points are the summer solstice, the winter solstice, the spring equinox, and autumn equinox. So for timekeeping, the Western calendar is concerned with the position of the sun in relation to the earth and changing of the seasons. It measures its zodiac from the equinox and solstice points. It's important to understand that the position of the equinox is not fixed, so Western astrology is defined by a movable and unfixed sky. This makes the horoscope or birth chart of a person inaccurate because the Earth wobbles as it spins on its axis, causing a shift in this ecliptic plane. This path moves about 1 degree every 72 years, so the position of the sun and planets no longer match where they used to be in relation to the signs. Now, Vedic astrology takes this tilt or precession into consideration and adjusts the horoscope based on the updated path. But Western astrology still follows the old symbolic path created 2,000 years ago, which is not astronomically accurate. In Vedic astrology, this tilt is called the Ayanamsha, and there is now a difference of around 22 to 25 degrees with the Western zodiac. Now, the Hindu zodiac divisions are based on completely different principles and measured by a fixed sky, defined by the backdrop of the moon, the field of stars or nakshatras, the lunar mansions, each holding a particular Shakti, of which there are 27. Hindu astrology maintains its relationship with the whole cosmos, measuring its alignment with the center of the galaxy, which we call Vishnu Nabhi, the navel of cosmic Vishnu, interestingly located in the nakshatra of Mula, Mula meaning the source. Hindu or Vedic astrology is a sidereal system based on the moon's journey through these 27 nakshatras that are further divided up into 12 forms, which are the rashis, the signs. And one rashi can be governed by a different nakshatra or star space. Therefore, no two Geminis, for example, will have the same traits if their rashi is governed by a different nakshatra. For example, you could be a Gemini in the nakshatra of Rohini, a Gemini in Ardra, or a Gemini in Punarvasu. The nakshatras refine the traits of a person, providing more depth into their characteristics and drives, along with their purpose and physical body attributes. So the Hindu Panchang calendar I grew up with, which is a lunar calendar, accurately measured time and space by the moon's movement through the stars, the moon taking 1 month to travel through the 27 nakshatras. It was so detailed and even highlighted Amavasya and Purnima dates, the new moons and full moons. It is truly a holistic calendar. So to fully comprehend the vastness of Jyotisha, you have to understand Sanatan Dharma, the Hindu way of life, the cosmology, the science of time, and our understanding of samsara, the reincarnation cycle. The individual soul essence, or the Atma, has a relationship with the whole of the cosmos, which we call Brahman. The astrology is so heavily a part of Hindu dharma that our names are often derived from the rashis themselves. It was a revelation when I discovered that my mum was named after her ascendant sign. It all just started to make sense when I started looking at other charts. Your own unique Jyotish chart is a snapshot of the sky at the time of your birth. And in this lifetime, you're being delivered the karma of your past actions of other lifetimes. So it's a map of your karma, of the path of your soul's journey up until the birth in this lifetime. It's the planets or the grahas that are delivering to you your karma in this lifetime, meaning delivering the responses to your past life actions. So identifying what area of your life the grahas sit in, the house, along with which nakshatras and signs they're in, will be really insightful for your experience and direction in this life. The Chaya grahas, or the shadow planets Rahu and Ketu, also play a key role in showing you where your obstacles lie in this lifetime and what your big desire is, the grip of where your attention is going, and the force that is holding you back. It's important to note that Hindus call the zodiac in Sanskrit the Kala Purusha, and one's Jyotish chart as the Kal Purush Kundali. So who or what is the Kal Purush? The Kal Purush is the zodiac, the macrocosmic or divine being, conceptualized by Hindus as Vishnu, the one who has knowledge of the Vedas, the accurate perception of reality. Vishnu is the universe personified and who is dreaming us all into being. We are a drop in the cosmic ocean or galaxy that is Vishnu. So the Kal Purush is the time-bound body of Vishnu manifested across space and time. The limbs and body parts of Vishnu become the Rashis, beginning with Aries as the head of the cosmic being and Pisces as the feet. If the Kal Purush is the macrocosmic cyclic experience of space and time, then the human body is the microcosm. The celestial bodies live within or form part of the human bodies. They are not something out there, but are experiential and affect the function of all aspects of our existence, our mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual planes of experience. Which is why the planets are called grahas, which means to grasp. They grip and influence you from within. Why do we place more emphasis on the moon? Because 90% of our life is governed and driven by the psychology of our subconscious mind and emotions, the manas. Only 10% is conscious. So the moon holds important karmic information. It's not about masculine or feminine sovereignty or consciousness. In Vedic astrology, there is no hierarchy like all dharmic structures and concepts. Every deity, every form has a function and a purpose, a role to play. It's just that we acknowledge that the moon has a greater pull, a psychological force which reflects its state in reality. And we know today that the moon actually physically influences us. It influences the experience of our body. And nowhere is this more apparent than women's menstrual cycles. And I've touched upon this in season 2 of my podcast of the Power Thought series on sensitivity, if you'd like to check that out. What I'm trying to say is that we are not dealing with symbols like in Western astrology. In Jyotish Shastra, which is the Hindu science of light, considered the eyes of the Vedas, we're seeing reality and the real effects of the cosmos on the body, the mind, the heart, and the spirit. Just like a yoga sadhaka, the life of the astrologer, their lifestyle, habits, their ethical and spiritual conduct cultivates and embodies sattva and holds integrity as they burn away their karma through citta shuddhi, purifying activities and diets, clarifying their ability to see into a soul, which is what the birth chart is. Through first practicing and living the yamas and niyamas, dharmic behaviors, perceptions become clearer. The inner eye, the light, must be clear. Hence the name Jyotish Shastra, the study of lights. That's why choosing your sources of knowledge and having that discernment through inner practice is very, very important. Hey, it's Bayal. My aim in this podcast was to highlight the deep cultural and spiritual significance within the Vedic science of Jyotish, its roots in Hindu cosmology and its contrast with Western astrology. I also highlighted the importance of approaching any Vedic science and Hindu Shastra with a holistic view. As we know that the colonial mind seeks to take parts from the whole to fit certain agendas and narratives for personal gain. Finally, if you follow the astrology, practice or teach it, I emphasize in this podcast how crucial it is to develop your mindset and ethical consciousness. I trust that you've come away with understanding the profound depth and relevance of Vedic astrology in the context of its living culture, the Hindus or Sanatanis, and our cosmic vision. To get Vedic astrology guidance, be part of my newsletter list. I offer guidance on the full moon and new moon each month. And follow me on my social channels. I'm at Prana and Poetry. All links are in the description. Subscribe to this channel for more dharmic content. Rise up, warrior.